Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to Monday. Monday, and the last week of kind of, I guess, real class for us, right? Because we're going to do presentations next week, and so we've really got 5 more days of kind of teaching and learning, and what?
Actual class.
Actual class. That's true. Only 5 more days. So. Yeah, let's say good morning to some people and let's get into this, okay? So Hamad is here. Good morning, Hamad. Malika's here. Good morning, Malika. Basil's here. Good morning, Basil. Awais is here. Good morning, Awais. Where's Sean? Good morning, Sean. Nicole is here. Good morning, Nicole. And Reza's here. Good morning, Reza. Okay. So on Thursday.
Yeah.
On Thursday, we started talking about classism, right? And again, classism organizes people, of course, not by race or gender or sexuality, but by their economic or social class, right? And again, depending on the country you go to and depending on the sort of time period you're talking about, class can kind of mean all different kinds of things, or at least what puts people in one class or another has to do with kind of multiple things at the same time, right? And so I pointed out this to you on Thursday is that you can actually have different types of power, right? And so on the far left here, we've got Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, super rich dude, although maybe I should have used Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos at this point. But either way, super rich dude has a lot of financial power, right? On the right, we have our prime minister, for now. It's probably going to be an election in the fall, so who knows? For now, Justin Trudeau, right? And Justin has a lot of political power, right? Because the office of the Prime Minister in Canada.
Does it get crazy during the election period?
Does it get crazy?
Yeah.
Define crazy.
Like it seems like there are a lot of political arguments, maybe a bit of riots as well.
Okay, there should be no riots. You'll see maybe not so much arguments, but you'll see lots of political discussion. You'll see people, talking about the election and who they like and who they're going to vote for. It doesn't get too crazy. It also, the last few elections in Canada have been not very exciting ones, and it seems that I think the last poll I saw showed that like 70 or 75% of Canadians are not really interested in having an election in the fall. So that basically guarantees a non-crazy election because people are just, they're dealing with COVID and all kinds of stuff and they just don't want to think about political things. And I guess they're happy enough with what Justin Trudeau is doing, so they just kind of don't want to be bothered.
But you don't want him, right? If I remember correctly.
I think he's been a bit of a disappointment. I think he promised a lot of things when he was elected, and I felt good about him being elected. But I don't necessarily know that he's followed through on a lot of things. I think he's made a number of how do I say it? He's made a number of bad decisions that he really should have known better. And where he sort of, oh well, whoops, and it's like, no, like you've got to know this stuff. And so
I also remember social media that a lot of people were talking about him for his being against indigenous people.
Against indigenous people?
Yeah.
Well, no, he's not. Well, again, it depends, right? When he was voted into office, Justin Trudeau he claimed he was going to reconcile, right? He was going to try to restore a nation-to-nation relationship with indigenous people. He didn't really do any of that. In fact, good morning. And he kind of seemed to forget about it for a little while. And then recently his government passed a law that was, that kind of looked good on paper but didn't mean anything. And so he hasn't really done anything. So is he against them? I would say no. Has he fulfilled his promises to Indigenous people in Canada? I would also say no, he has not. So, yeah. some people might, some people who are looking to politically damage him might say that, oh, he's against indigenous people. I don't think he is, but I don't think he didn't do what he said he was going to do, right? So yeah, I think I'm a little disappointed. I'm not mad, Justin. I'm disappointed. But we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure that anyone is really strong enough to challenge him, except maybe Jagmeet Singh. But we'll see. We'll see. I was unsure of Jagmeet Singh a couple of years ago. I didn't know if he was quite ready for the Prime Minister's chair. I don't know if he was ready for prime time. I'm not sure if he is now, but I guess we'll find out in the fall if he can do it. Anyway, so Justin Trudeau has political power. Here in the center, we have the Dalai Lama. He's the head of sort of the Buddhist faith. He's kind of a political leader in Tibet, if you will, and a lot of people kind of look up to him. So he has social power, right? So people can have, just one type, or they can have multiple types of power, right? And so some people are very wealthy and have a lot of social power, and some even have political power at the same time, right? So classism then is a system by which a dominant group, which is usually the very upper part of society, the 1%, if you will, are the ones who are kind of structuring society to benefit them. And what we'll see is it winds up not benefiting the minoritized group, which is basically everyone else.
Everyone else, then why not?
Well, because the people at the top are the ones who have power, the real power, right? The power to use their money to obtain resources and opportunities for themselves that the rest of us cannot really obtain, and the ability to kind of influence government to get them to do what they want, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And so we're, most of us, again, I don't know your backgrounds and you don't need to tell me, but most of us are probably in the minoritized group. We're, upper middle class at most, right? Again, I might be wrong. If there's any, royalty or super rich people in the room, you don't have to tell me. But it's you, isn't it, Rafay? You're loaded, aren't you? No? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so this is kind of how classism works, right? And we pointed out a couple things about what holds classism in place, and a lot of it has to do with ideology around work, right, and around how the world works. And so sometimes we have things like certain families or certain breeding. These people are, at the top of society because they're somehow better. They come from prestigious families, and so they sort of deserve to be at the top of society, right? Sometimes it has to do with ideas about who's more sophisticated and intelligent, right? Often we think that people at the top of, the economic ladder are somehow smarter, right? They know more, right? They have the money because they're smart enough to make it, right? And again, there's grains of truth to that, but there's also plenty of stupid people up there as well, right? And again, we also see that what's cool is often determined by that upper class, right? So the people with economic power and social power and political power often define what kinds of things are desirable or cool, right? It's very cool in many cases to look wealthy, right? To, nice suits, nice cars, nice watch, all that stuff. It's not really so cool to look poor, right? That's actually not so cool, usually. And so, again, we have these kind of ideologies that are holding this system in place. Meritocracy is one. Again, the idea that, if you want to be successful, you just have to work hard. And if you're not successful, you're not working hard enough. And again, there's some truth to that as well. But there's also some non-truth to that, right? And again, on Thursday we talked about Donald Trump, who has been very successful, right? He's been, or at least he's been seen as very successful. He became the president of the United States, which I would say is a pretty big success for any person. If I ever become Prime Minister of Canada, that's going to be a big deal for me. I doubt it. But, well, I don't know. Justin Trudeau's a couple years older than I am, so I think maybe in the next couple years I could pull it off. Do you think?
Yeah, you have my vote. Exactly.
Thanks.
I'll be a citizen, so I can vote as well.
One down, 36 million to go. First one's the hardest. No, I don't know. So,
What's the difference between meritocracy and individualism?
yes. So meritocracy is the idea that if you work hard, right? If you work hard, then you will succeed. And if you're not succeeding, you're not working hard enough. And so, again, there's a grain of truth to this, right? If you want to be a cardiac surgeon, you have to work hard, right? You're going to have to do a lot of school, and the school's going to be really difficult, and you're going to have to study hard and work hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone who's successful has worked that hard, right? And I mentioned Donald Trump because Donald Trump, again, came from a wealthy family, right? He had lots of money from day one. He lived in a nice neighborhood, right? He had good food and nice clothes. He got sent to all the fanciest private schools, right? And when he was 18, after he dodged military service, he got a huge chunk of money from his dad to sort of start his first businesses. And then he inherited the Trump company from his father when his father passed away. And then he was super rich then, right? And so, you know, again, I'm not saying he didn't do anything, right? I'm sure he worked, but yeah, he had a lot of advantages, right? And so, you know, with the board game mentality, he started ahead of most people, right? Or he has more dice or gets to pull more cards or whatever kind of board game you want to imagine. He's got an advantage, right? It's easier for him to win than others. And in fact, I wish I could find this, but I remember reading an article years ago saying that if you look at the money that Trump got from his investors and from his father and his father's business, and so if you add all that up and then you add up what he has now, you know, he's kind of styled himself as, oh, I'm such a great businessman, right? I make so much money, and you know, I get really wealthy. Good morning. But if you add up what he was given and what he has, he would have done just as well if he just like put all his money in just like a regular investment and left it there. So, like, there's no, you know, it's not like he was so smart and he did all these maneuvers and, you know, made the money. It's just that people put so much money into him that he couldn't help but, like, you know, do okay. And that's what he's done. He's done, like, fine. But he's just had so much money injected into him that it looks like he's super successful. But again, if your business, you know, if you have a $10 million business, but somebody's pumped like $9 million into it, it's not that successful, right? But again, it's a $10 million business, so it looks successful. And that's kind of the story with him. Although, as New York prosecutors are digging away at his tax records, they might find that, in fact, he's made his money in illegal ways. But I guess yeah, but we'll see how that turns out for him. Anyway, meritocracy. Individualism is different, right? Individualism is that, you know, that our group memberships don't matter, right? And so my place in society and my level of success, whatever it is, has nothing to do with my gender or my sexuality or my race or my citizenship status or anything. It's all me, right? I am the sole, you know, I'm the sole liver of my life, right? And everything that happens in my life is due to me, right? And again, we also know that that's not entirely true either, right? In part it is. Good morning. In part it is, right? We're all unique individual people, and we, you know, we will affect the world in different ways, but our group memberships matter as well, right? The fact that I'm a man has influenced my life, right? Not always in ways that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, right? And so again, because of our group memberships, there are choices that are easily available to me and there are choices that are not, right? And similarly, for people in other social groups, there are choices that are available to them and choices that are not. Yeah, but we're not all free, independent individuals, right? We are, we all occupy certain places in society. We all have different group memberships, and that makes a difference, right? People might want to pretend that it doesn't. We might wish that it wouldn't, right? But it does, unfortunately. I'm going to skip over that one. So, in terms of kind of organizing society, we said you could split society into 4 groups if you wanted to. Depending on who you talk to, they'll split them into maybe 3 or 5. So, there's no set way to do this, but this is maybe an easy way for us to imagine society, right? And again, the owning class are the ones that are in the dominant group. The people who have enough money and investments and real estate and whatever that they don't really have to work, right? Often they do, right? Jeff Bezos goes to work every morning, I'm sure. He doesn't have to, right? And he probably doesn't have to go to work for his next 4 lifetimes at least. But, he does, but he doesn't have to, right? These are the people who have enough money that their money makes them money. So they don't really have to work if they don't want to. And so, again, they're able to do things that regular people aren't able to do, right? Like crazy rich Asians. They can do things that regular people can't, right? They're living this whole other type of life, right? That is separate from what most of us have. Again, you can break the middle class into maybe 2 groups, right? Those with kind of advanced degrees and who kind of work on their computer and use their mind a little bit more. And then people who often have skills training and sort of use their bodies a little bit more, whether they're in construction or plumbing or some sort of thing. These are pretty blurry categories, right? Some people in the working class actually make excellent money, and so they kind of make money that is closer to here, right? Some people in this, some people in the middle class here who have advanced degrees sometimes don't make that much, like teachers in the United States. So these categories are kind of a little blurry, yeah, but it's just to help us think about them.
What would a professional athlete be classed as?
A professional athlete?
Yeah.
I think it depends. If you're thinking of, it really depends. Like, who are you thinking of?
The track and field athlete.
Oh, yeah. So, like, in a sport no one cares about, sorry. In a sport no one cares about, I don't think they make a ton of money, right? They get money in terms of, like, sponsorships and things like that. But I think they kind of use that to take care of their daily expenses because they're spending their entire day training, right? So I don't think that like Olympic athletes and I don't think they make a whole ton of money. If you're talking about like baseball players or hockey players, they're probably, interestingly, they use their bodies for work, but their income puts them, much higher in the middle class, right? In kind of right at the top of the middle class. So it really depends. But then I think NFL players are not paid quite so well. Yeah, but baseball players are paid like ridiculous sums, and I think it really depends on your sport and kind of who you are. But again, it's not a perfect system, right? There's lots of people who have a lot of degrees and are paid, not next to nothing, but fairly low. There are some people who have, very little professional training at all, and they make lots of money. It's a blurry category. And then, of course, we've got the poor, people who are reliant on some form of assistance, right? So they're at the poverty line or they're below, so they can't pay for their basic food and clothing and shelter, right? So we can break society up into different groups. We've kind of chosen to do this, or I've chosen to include this. We watched a little video yesterday, and we kind of saw that in the US we have a pretty significant degree of inequality, right? I don't have the stats for Canada here. Canada is a little less unequal than the United States is. The United States is very unequal. But you can see that that's, I don't know, maybe that's fine to you, but I kind of think that's pretty shocking that so few people have so much wealth, right? And so many people have nothing, right? You can see that in the top bar graph there, the blue and the green and the yellow, you know, that's 80% of society right there. And they have, oh, I don't know, less than 20%. Well, they have less than 20% of the wealth, right? They have very, very little. And so again, what does it mean when your country is the richest or one of the richest countries on earth, and yet it's not really the country that's rich, it's just certain people, right? And everyone, many other people are kind of struggling to get by. I asked you, or I mentioned this question on Friday, and we didn't answer it because I had a video I wanted to show you. But the question was, how do you think we got this degree of inequality? Why are things, I'm going to back it up. Why do things look like this in the United States, do you think? Do you remember some of the things that you said? Because they were all good, but I don't remember what you said. So, do you remember what you said? Why are things so unequal? Why do some people have so much more?
Price of the products, they are cheap for the rich people.
Right.
They're expensive for
Right. So your basic necessities, food and clothing and shelter, are kind of the same price for everyone, and so they make up a bigger percentage of poor people's income, but a much smaller percentage of rich people's income, right? Rich people are kind of getting a deal in terms of food and shelter and clothing, right? If they want, right? Of course, if you're going to shop at, you know, Nordstrom's or Harry Rosen all the time, then maybe not, but you can dress a little more inexpensively if you like. What else?
America, they don't tax, like sometimes they don't tax what people.
Yeah, well, as it turns out, it's much easier to get tax write-offs if you are wealthy, right? You can have investments, you can move your money around, you can have properties, you can do all kinds of things with your taxes that help to reduce your tax level, right? Most poor people don't have that, right? Most people don't have any tax write-offs at all, right? For instance, me, I'm not really a poor person, but I'm not a super rich person either, and I don't really have any tax write-offs, right? When I do my taxes at the end of the year, the only thing that really helps me are my RRSP contributions, my retirement contributions, because those are tax write-offs. But other than that, I pay the full thing, right? The full tax bill. And lots of people, you know, in the bottom part of society do pay their full tax bill because they don't have any write-offs, right? They don't have any way to reduce their tax bill. But wealthy people do, right? And for the most part, wealthy people have pushed for those things because they have the financial and political power to do it, right? What else?
Getting discrimination, like women are paid less than men.
Okay, well,
Not like every places, in some places.
I guess you could say that, you know, if half your society is being paid less than the other half, then that can contribute to inequality. Okay. All right. What else? Why else is there so much inequality, would you say?
Lack of education for the less fortunate ones. Like those who are not educated, they don't get degree, then get good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
They will.
Yeah. So So people who don't get a good education or don't get a proper education are going to make less money, right? And again, who's most likely to get a poor education? Yeah, right. Especially in the United States, where schools are paid for by the property taxes of the properties around the school, right? If you live in a poor neighborhood, your school is going to be funded by low property taxes, right? Is there going to be a lot of money? No. Is there going to be a lot of resources or field trips or materials? No, there's not going to be any of that stuff. But if you go to school in the ritzy neighborhood where all the rich people live, yeah, right, that school is going to have a good budget, right? They're going to be able to do all kinds of things. And so, again, that's a problem because it perpetuates the inequality already, right? I'm a poor person. I'm going to send my poor kids to their poor school. They're going to get a poor education and they're going to wind up with poor jobs and they're going to be poor too, right? Rich dude up the hill, rich dude sends his kids to their fancy school. They get a good education. They go to university because I can pay for it. They get good jobs. They get rich too, right? And so everything kind of stays where it is, right? And we talked about that yesterday too, the idea of social mobility, and we'll talk about it again in just a minute. Any other reasons why you can think of?
Maybe because like the top 20%, they're most likely to be owners of titles and companies. So when they're hiring people, they pay the wages in proportions that will make them benefit more than the employees.
Yeah, right. So often that top 20%, well, that top 1 or 2% or whatever it is, those people are often the owners, right? And so they're the ones who are paying the regular people. And of course, working in their company, they try to pay them as little as they possibly can, right? But they don't often try to pay themselves as little as they possibly can. They try to maximize their profit, right? So they're going to make as much money as possible and pay people kind of as little as they can get away with, right? So yeah, that contributes as well. That's kind of a Marxist perspective, if you're curious. Yeah, that's kind of a Marxist perspective. But I mentioned on Thursday that we also have this type of inequality on a global scale as well, right? So within every country, there's different levels of inequality, right? As it turns out, the U.S. is pretty unequal, right, within its borders. As I said, the U.S. Canada is a little bit less unequal, but there's still some inequality here. But globally speaking, I think we all recognize that there are rich countries and there are poor countries, right? And so there are things that are contributing to global inequality, but also inequality within countries, okay? And that's kind of what I wanted to look at briefly here. So I've got a very short video to show you, and for online people, the link is in Microsoft Teams. And so what I'd like you to do is pay attention, watch it, and pay attention to these 5 causes of growing economic inequality. Okay? So there's 5 things. Try to remember what they are. Okay? So online people, go watch the video. We'll see you back here in just 4 or 5 minutes. Okay? Okay, so give me that first of the 5 changes, or the 5 reasons for global economic inequality.
Computers taking over human thoughts.
Yeah.
So many concentration.
Yeah, so there's been so the rise of computer technology and now artificial intelligence technology, right? And robotics and things like that has had a huge impact on the workplace, right? And it's becoming so much easier to use technology to accomplish a job rather than human beings, right? And so and we've probably all seen this. Can you think of an example of where technology has replaced a worker or workers?
Factory.
Sure.
Amazon. A lot of the packing is now done by machines.
Right? So we see robots in factories and in warehouse situations, right, where there's arms and welding and all kinds of things happening, and it's all robotic, right? There's no people there to do that. Where else have you noticed it?
Like toothpaste companies, like toothpaste factories, like the caps that they use, those get on them are
Toothpaste factories? And what's happening?
like the caps for toothpaste,
Uh-huh.
put it in machines, now it's done by machines.
The machine is putting the caps on? Oh man, that would have been a sweet job, wouldn't it? Such a sense of of accomplishment, right? When you're like, done. Another one done. But yeah, that's another. Yeah, for sure. What's that? ATM machines. Yeah, right. Once upon a time, you actually had to go into a bank and talk to someone to get your money out, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're too young for that. But yeah, prior to widespread ATMs, yeah, you had to go into the bank and withdraw money. You had to fill out. Oh my God. That's it. I've become old. I've officially become old. Like I'm sitting up here telling you, back in my day when I was young, we used to do things in a different way. Sorry. So. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm worried now. But, again, this is a long time ago. But yeah, like if you wanted to go to the bank and withdraw $100, you went to the bank and you got a little withdrawal slip and you filled it out and you signed it. You brought it to the teller and she, did some stuff and then she gave you your $100.
This system still goes on from developing countries.
Yeah.
Where they don't have ATM machines in cities.
Yeah. Yeah, if you live in a place that doesn't have that kind of technological infrastructure, then that's the way, right? But of course now we have ATMs. Does anyone even carry money anymore?
No.
Do we have like $20 between all of us in this room even? Yeah? Oh, okay. Okay, if you're gonna rob anyone, rob Rafay. He's got lots of cash. But for the most part, I would say most people don't really carry money anymore, do they? I don't. I never have money on me. What's that?
I prefer carrying money because I have a card. I can't stop myself.
Yeah, it is much easier to tap away, right?
I don't even carry card now.
No?
Don't have Apple Pay.
You have nothing? You're just.
I have Apple Pay.
Oh, you have Apple Pay. Oh, right. Yeah. So you don't even need the card.
Use the card now.
That's true, right?
Yeah. The development of the technology is bringing us down to a place where we don't need human beings anymore.
Yeah. Exactly, right? So all of these bank transactions that are happening that used to require a teller, a bank person to do them, now you can do them from your phone, right? You don't even have to get out of bed. You just go ahead and transfer money to people, right? Or pay your bills or whatever you need to do.
Like the grocery stores, the self-checkout.
Yeah, self-checkouts, right? All those used to be cashier jobs. Now they're making you do it for free, right? Is that a scam or what? You're working for Superstore for free as you scan your own groceries through. What a scam. But that's what's happening, right? Those cashier jobs are gone,
I
and
had the same thought. What a scam.
but yeah, those jobs are gone, and the technology is standing in for it, right? And there's all kinds of ways in which this is happening. And again, as as technology gets better, as AI improves, you're going to see that a lot of jobs that are repetitive or simple or just need people to recall simple things, they're going to be gone, right? Because we just don't.
Before this country was invented, we needed drivers.
Yeah.
Car drivers, taxi drivers.
In Edmonton, they still have drivers on the trains. So they don't have a very extensive train system in Edmonton, but there's still people driving them. But here we don't need them, right? The entire system operates with no drivers. Although there's other kinds of staff, but still we don't need drivers, right? And there's all kinds of places where you can look to find technology replacing regular workers, right? And it's worth remembering, right? Because you all, well, and me too, but you all are entering the workforce, in the nearish future, right? And you're, hopefully you want to create a situation where you're not going to be replaced by a machine, right? And the more kind of complicated your job is, the less likely that a machine is going to take it, right? But again, simple things are, do you think that artificial intelligence and robots and things could take over for teaching?
Maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future? Do you think it might be better to have some sort of robotic thing?
No.
I could just be like, you could be like working on an assignment, and I could be like marking your assignments in real time simultaneously all at the same time because I'm a computer and I can monitor like all kinds of different students' work. What's that?
What for invigilation? Maybe. But for teaching stuff,
I don't think the, any like a robot can do it better than a teacher.
That is correct. Move on to the next question. No, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, right? And to think about what careers might be replaced by technology, right? And again, whether that's actually a good thing, because the question that we'll get to shortly after is that again, what happens to those people, right? Those cashiers, those bank tellers, those toothpaste top screwer-oners. Like, what happens to those people, right? Where do they find work if they can't find it there, right? Do you remember what the second one was? Globalization. And what was that kind of about? It's hard to remember them all. It had to do with China a little bit.
the rapid growth.
Yeah. And
Also, it's like more resources, more number of people, and people being able to adapt and
more resources, but more manufacturing jobs showing up in China, right? So as China has become the place where basically everything is made, I'm sure that everything that we're wearing and using right now is made in China. Those manufacturing jobs have disappeared, right, from places like the United States. And as they mentioned, the people who were in the middle class doing that manufacturing, they've kind of slipped down, right? They didn't rise up. They wound up in kind of simple service jobs or transport jobs or security or something, because that section of the middle class, those jobs are now missing. They're gone, right? And people have kind of slipped down into sort of lower paid, kind of less dependable work, right? Thanks, China. No, I'm just teasing. So that's happened, right? As the global economy kind of evolves, so too do the economies of each country, right? Do you remember the third one? I don't remember it either. Okay, let's look. Oh yeah, it was the rise of superstars, right? So So companies like Apple and Amazon and a few others are now global companies, right? They're massive. And so again, if you're going to pay CEOs and heads of those companies, you know, if you're what's Apple worth now? What is that company worth? Yeah, they do billions and billions of sales every year, right? They're massive. And you can't go to Tim Cook, the head of Apple, and pay him $200,000 a year, right? That's ridiculous. He's not gonna Tim Cook doesn't get out of bed for $200,000, right?
2 trillion.
It's worth what?
2 trillion.
$2 trillion, right? So if Tim Cook is going to run a $2 trillion company for you, he's not going to do it for $200,000 a year, or 3, or 4, right? You're really going to have to pay this guy, right? But as these companies have gotten bigger and bigger, so too has the compensation for people at the top of the ladder, right? So here you can see, yeah, in 2015, CEOs make 276 times as much as their typical workers, right? And again, as these companies get bigger and bigger, you see that economic disparity rise, right? I don't know how much money Jeff Bezos makes, but his Amazon warehouse workers do not make anything near that, right? So everyone working at Amazon makes very, very little, and Jeff makes, you know, an amount of money that's so large he can launch himself into space, and it probably didn't even make a dent in his income, right? And so yeah, you can see here that within countries it kind of varies, right? But you can see the countries that are that have bigger, more global corporations, and countries that have greater economic inequality, right? So you can see, you know, in Japan and Germany, you've got 11 or 12 to 1, so CEOs make 12 times as much as their average worker. You know, in Canada here it's 20 to 1, so we're kind of less equal than countries like Japan, but we're certainly more equal than countries like the US, for instance, where it's 475 times, right? That's a big difference. Let's see. Oh yeah, failing labor. So the video mentioned that membership in labor unions are down. What's a labor union?
A group of people united for asking for their wages to go up.
Okay, group of people united to ask for their wages to go up, Rafay?
People working in construction unions, like doing the work.
Yeah. So often, it is people kind of working or, you know, a bunch of people who often work together or work in the same kind of trade, right? And they're together in a union, and they negotiate their salaries and benefits and working conditions as a group rather than individually, right? And again, that gives you a lot of leverage, right? Because again, Rafay can come into my office and ask for a raise, and I'll say, get out of here, Rafay. You're not giving you any more money, right? Forget about it. But if he comes in as representative of the entire factory and says, hey, we want a raise, or we're not coming into work on Monday, I got to take him seriously, right? We've got to negotiate something. I can still fire him, but no, no, I can't. But he has a lot more leverage that way. But as we saw, membership and unions are declining, right? And those large corporations will fight very hard to make sure that their workers do not unionize. And we saw Amazon do that very thing. They were, was it Alabama? Amazon workers in Alabama were going to unionize, and then they voted not to. But Jeff Bezos and Amazon worked very hard to make sure that they did not, right? Because what's that?
What's a gig economy?
What's what? A gig economy? So a gig economy. Hang on one second here. A gig economy is where people don't have long-term steady jobs, right? Where they're just picking up contract work here and there. That's a gig. And so, again, the gig economy is sort of what some young professionals are kind of have to deal with. It's not steady, right? Because you're just picking up work, short contracts wherever you can. Because you're not a permanent employee, you don't get any benefits from those companies, right? And so, and it's up and down, right? You could have a lot of work for a few months and then maybe you don't find anything, right? So it's not very steady, it's not very dependable. You don't have any benefits. It's a tough way to sort of make your living, right? Actors have a gig economy, if you will, right? None of them have a steady job. They have to keep finding new work all the time, right? But we're not worried about actors here usually. Yeah, and finally this seizing the advantage, right? And really what they're talking about here is rich people's ability to kind of gain more resources and opportunities than others, right? And so sometimes we see it in terms of rich people getting their kids into the best schools, right? Just because they have the money. Although we saw those two actresses who were, I forget what they did. I think they somehow paid, either they bribed someone or they paid someone else to take the entrance exam for their kids into an Ivy League college. So their kid got in with super high marks, even though their kid didn't write the exam. They can push the government for tax cuts. They can do all kinds of things that you know to allow them to benefit themselves, and things that regular people can't do, right? Regular people can't send their kids to the best schools, right? And often regular people send them to the school that's down the road, right? Because that's the closest one, and it's free, or it's paid for with tax dollars. So that's what they do. So again, this kind of decreases social mobility, right? It ensures that if you're born into a poor family, it's going to make it much more difficult for you to rise out of that. Right? But again, for people who are in the rich part of society, they're kind of insulated, and it's much more difficult to go from being rich to poor rather than poor to rich, right? People who are rich tend to stay there. People who are poor have a really tough time climbing up the ladder, right? At least in countries like the United States, where social mobility is kind of low. Okay, you want to take a little break? Yeah, me too. Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back in 10 minutes. All right, so we're back. So we watched that video talking about, a few ideas about why global inequality and inequality within countries continues to increase, right? And again, some of those things have to do with technological changes. Some of them have to do with changing markets and economies and where things are manufactured. Some of them have to do with the rise of these superstars, the sort of decline of labor unions, and finally the ability of kind of rich people to kind of make an advantage for themselves, right? And again, when you have when you have money, when you have power, when you have influence, you can make things happen, right? It smooths out a lot of life's rougher patches, right? And yeah. I have some more to show you, but I think what I might do now is let you do some project work so that you have enough time. Yeah, I'm going to give you some time to do that, okay? So online people, I'll turn you loose here to do some work on your projects, and in-class people will do the same thing. If you have any questions, you can let me know, but that's what we'll do for the next little bit, okay? All right. Okay, good people, that's about all the time we have for today, so I will let you pack it up. I'll see you tomorrow. I've got some more classism stuff to show you, and we will move forward, okay? Maybe a few things more to say on the project tomorrow as well, so say pack it up, and we'll see you then, okay? All right.